Hi everyone, in this video we're going to talk about increases in greenhouse gases. There's really just two that College Board wants us to focus on, and that's sea level rise and disease vectors. So why is sea level rising? We have a couple of things going on. We have thermal expansion, where water molecules move slightly further apart from each other when they're heated. As heat is added to the water molecules, their motion is going to speed up and they're going to move slightly further apart. All of the water molecules of the ocean moving slightly apart leads to a sea level rise because you're essentially increasing the volume of the water. Melting ice sheets and glaciers add to the sea level volume. So increased greenhouse gases lead to a warmer climate and more melting of continental ice sheets in Antarctica as well as glaciers. This water flows into the ocean and leads to sea level rise. I don't believe meltwater from the North Pole affects this, and I think because it's seasonal, don't quote me on it, but we're just talking about the continental ice sheets melting and contributing to sea level rising when we're talking about melting ice sheets and glacial ice. So this graph shows the effect on sea level with just thermal expansion being the red line, mostly added meltwater in blue, and the synergistic effect of both the added water and the thermal expansion. And this goes back all the way to before 1995 to 2020. The environmental impacts of sea level rise, so the flooding of coastal ecosystems like estuaries such as mangroves and salt marshes, these are unique ecosystems that we don't want to lose due to flooding. This can lead to a loss of species that depend on Arctic and tundra ecosystems, such as polar bears, penguins, and reindeers. And loss of glaciers' thaw-freeze cycle will deprive surrounding ecosystems and human communities of water sources. And this will be seasonally dependent, but if you depend on those glaciers thawing and melting to provide fresh water each season, the loss of those glaciers altogether is going to greatly impact the available water for those regions. Human impacts of sea level rise. So the humans living on the coast are going to relocate. So an increase in flood frequency means that those living along the coast have higher insurance rates and repair costs, as well as lost property altogether should the waters flood too high. We can have that saltwater intrusion that we talked about, where saltwater pushes into the groundwater that is freshwater underground, and that will contaminate the drinking water that is pumped out of wells near the coastline. And then refugees are forced to move inland. Disease vectors. So we haven't touched on this yet, but vectors are living organisms, usually things like mosquitoes, ticks, and fleas that can transmit diseases from human to human or animal to human. For example, malaria, the Zika virus, West Nile virus, dengue fever, and cholera. When warmer temperatures expand their usual regions, this allows these vectors, so these insects or animals that are able to carry disease, to expand their range as far as their habitat is concerned as well. Previously too cold regions of the world are going to get exposed to these disease vectors as well. So typically they will be located near the equator within that range, but as the earth warms up, those vectors are able to expand further north and further south, meaning more human populations are at risk. So this is the current range for dengue fever, Zika virus, and yellow fever, and we're looking at a certain species of mosquito as the vector, and this is the projected range of that disease vector with little to no efforts made to mitigate climate change. So just so we can kind of see that difference again. And this is predicted for the year 2080. And then if we exceed the Paris Agreement goals, this would be what that would look like. So we've kind of shrunk that back down towards the equator if we exceed our goals with the Paris Climate Agreement, which doesn't look likely, but hey, we can try. And that's it for this section. If you have any questions, let me know.